This public hearing to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Donahue?
Here.
Attorney Dempsey? Mr. Gahn?
Here.
Mr. Rogan?
Here.
The purpose of said public hearing is to hear testimony and discuss the following: file of council number 75 of 2019, establishing permit parking on the even side of the 900 block of Jefferson Avenue.
There's no one signed in to speak regarding this item. If anyone would like to address council regarding this piece of legislation, feel free. All right, let the record show nobody spoke. This hearing's adjourned. Call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent prayer for our servicemen and women throughout the world and for all of those who have passed away in our community. Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Donahue?
Here.
Attorney Dempsey? Mr. Gahn?
Here.
Mr. Rogan?
Here. Please dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Done now? Okay. Reports and communications from the mayor and heads of departments and interested parties in the city and clerk's notes. Tax assessor results reports for a hearing dated held September 25th, 26th, October 2nd, and 9th, 2019. Minutes of the regular meeting of the members of the Scranton Housing Authority held September 9th, 2019. Tax assessor's report for a hearing dated to be held October 30th, 2019. Controls report for month ending September 30th, 19. Minutes of the Scranton Firefighters Pension Commission meeting held September 18th, 19. Minutes of the Non-Uniform Municipal Pension Board meeting held September 18th, 2019. Minutes of the Scranton Police Pension Commission meeting held September 18th, 2019. Minutes of the Composite Pension Board meeting held September 18th, 2019. Agenda for the Non-Uniform Municipal Pension Board meeting held October 16th, 2019. Minutes of the regular meeting of the Scranton Redevelopment Authority held September 13th, 2019. Check received in the amount of $500 from Harrison Avenue House Personal Health Care Home, which is payment in lieu of taxes for the city of Scranton.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
I'd like to make a
Item
motion.
4, citizens' participation.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, he was going to do fourth order, so we'll do our
Okay.
our table first.
I'd like to make a motion to table item 7A.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question. Item 7A is the legislation where the city or council is going to adopt a contract with Barry Isidon Associates to complete a service assessment or a review of the licensing and permits inspections department. I'm making this motion to table this legislation for a few different reasons, one of which, after reviewing the contract, I think it may be open-ended. I talked to the business administrator, and one of the things that we discussed was possibly rebidding this contract and asking the companies for a fixed cost. This contract runs for 2 years, 2019 and 2021. My concern is that we're leaving ourselves open with hourly rates, and the other reason why I wanted to table this is in looking at the other contract, the other proposal, One of the things in there, which we have all talked about in terms of licensing and inspections, is the technology component. One of the complaints that we have received time and time again from the public in regards to the licensing and inspections department is that you can't do anything online. You can't get a permit online. You can't file anything online. You have to physically come down to the office, pay for permits. Within the Safe Build proposal, which is the one that the city did not choose, there is a technology component in the form of software that this company would offer for no cost. So I think that we should look at that more closely before we make a decision. So for those reasons, I asked my colleagues if they would table this legislation. Thank you.
We did discuss this in caucus. This will be a one-week tabling, and then we'll have it back for a up or down vote next week. This is a very important piece of legislation, so we do need to have a vote on it, but the additional week to get some questions answered is warranted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved. Do any council members have announcements to make?
Yes, I have one. The city of Scranton is preparing their 5-year consolidated plan, annual action plan, and its analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. As part of the planning process, the city is conducting a survey to identify residents' needs in the community and ideas on what city residents would like to see funds used for. Please take a few minutes, if you haven't already, and complete the survey, which can be found at the top of the city's website, scrantonpa.gov.
One announcement. Council recently placed an ad in the newspaper for an alternative member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. If any resident would be interested in being considered as an alternate zoning board member, kindly submit a letter of interest or resume to the office of the city clerk no later than Wednesday, October 30th, 2019.
Fourth order, citizens' participation.
Our first speaker tonight is Joan Hodowanitz.
Joan Hodowanitz, city resident and taxpayer. During fifth order, if somebody up there, since I see Attorney Dempsey's not here, provide us the status of the audit, which was due on September 30th. And speaking of the annual audit, as I recall, when we were looking at the issue of double pensions, the question came up about whether or not we needed a forensic audit for that little mess. And one of the conclusions was that you don't conduct a forensic audit unless you have evidence, not allegations, but evidence of criminal wrongdoing. Now, looking back at the past year, I think we've checked that box of having criminal evidence, evidence of criminal wrongdoing. And, you know, and it seems every time you kick over a pebble, we're finding new things, gas cards, misuse of government vehicles, on and on. Maybe we should build a statue to Chief DeSarno, because if he had not had that fender bender, we would have been in the blind. We wouldn't have known about any of that. But I think as you approach the new year and you are going to vote on the next annual audit, maybe it shouldn't be the run-of-the-mill ordinary audit, for which we have not really gotten much back. Think back to Rossi and Company. Think back to SB and Company. They never found out any of this crap. Forensic audits are very time-consuming and very expensive. But I think we'll do the accountability that they bring with it. So think hard about that and talk to the mayor. Thursday night at 5 p.m. will be the second meeting of the Ethics Board. We're still waiting on a fifth member to be appointed, and we're waiting on obtaining a solicitor for our board. We can't really talk to anybody in the building, and so we need our own solicitor. So that ball is now with the city solicitor, and if I don't get some kind of feedback by the end of the week, then I'll start kicking doors myself. But it brings me to another comment. I was uneasy when I was approached about sitting on the ethics board because I've always been uneasy about boards, commissions, and authorities. You see, they don't answer to the voters. They're appointed by a mayor or In your case, the council appoints 2 people, and then off they go with no accountability to even the people that appointed them. So you would hope that the ordinary citizen and the media would then act as a watchdog over the watchdogs. There's a phrase in Latin, and I won't repeat it here, but basically it says, who watches the watchdogs? So I invite the people of Scranton to come not just to the Ethics Board meeting, if they can, but the Sewer Authority, which met last week and was not well attended by the general public, and Parking Authority meetings, or any other meeting. Look at the history of some of these boards and what they got away with. Look at the history of the Parking Authority and the Sewer Authority. By the way, how many lawyers does it take to sell a sewer authority? Answer, more than 51, since we're still working on it. Finally, last but not least, Scranton Public Library does a lot to support the local community. And on Wednesday, November 13th at 6:30 p.m. and Saturday, November 16th at 11 a.m., they're bringing in the Society for Financial Awareness, who will present a talk on strategies to maximize your social security benefits. And all you young people out there, okay, it's never too early to start planning your retirement. They're going to tell you how to calculate your Social Security benefits, the best time to apply for those benefits, what to do if you're married, and how to coordinate benefits with your spouse. Best one, how to reduce or eliminate taxes on your benefits. Everybody should want to learn that. And why the Social Security Administration can't give you advice on your options. This is a free presentation at Scranton Public Library on the 2nd floor, Henkelman Room. And to register, just call Jessica Sorrenti at 570-795-4315. And I think everybody in their 30s and 40s ought to be thinking retirement and not waiting until you're 65 or 66 years old. Thank you.
Thank you. David Yaros and Sue Verone.
Evening, gentlemen. My name is David. I'm here tonight to bring to your attention the conditions of Boulevard Avenue between Parker and the 81 overpass, especially in front of the Green Ridge Healthcare Center. I have here with me a petition which reads, "We, the undersigned, petition the City of Scranton to allocate the funds necessary to re-engineer and repave Boulevard Avenue between Parker Street and Interstate 81 overpass. The condition of the Boulevard Avenue does not allow safe passage for medical ambulances, Green Ridge Care Facility, and Gardens of Green Ridge patient transport vehicles. This causes safety concerns for the residents of 2 major care facilities along the boulevard. We would like to see the City of Scranton pursue and rectify this issue within the coming year. There are in excess of 140 residents between both facilities. And I also have some statements from them, if I may read. Many of them, one, Sue Verone is here. She's going to get up and speak in just a moment. This one comes from Bernetta Nigro, who is a resident at Green Ridge Care Center. Dated the 17th. To whom it may concern, I, Bernetta Nigro, a resident of Green Ridge Care Center, want to strongly complain about the pavement on Boulevard Avenue. Being 96 years old, I must travel on this road in a wheelchair van several times a month to doctor's appointments and hospital visits for blood transfusions. The potholes and patches in the road surface causes severe discomfort and pain each trip. Please repave this street. Sincerely, Bernetta Nigro. I have other statements to the same effect. I have approached the director of DPW, and I just need to follow through to make sure that this gets done in the coming year. I understand that there's engineering that has to be done. The sides have to be, I don't understand what has to be done. I know it's scraped or, debris removed so the water can run off. I don't have anything from the ambulance crews with me tonight, but I know they complain about it as well. I drive the bus at times for Greenridge, and I've taken residents out, and I've literally had to pull over because one resident that was getting a knee replacement was in tears because of the road condition. Okay. Sue, would you like to say anything? You going to stand, or you want me to pull it down?
Okay. I am a resident at the Greenridge Care Center on Boulevard Avenue, and I travel that road in the center van and to my doctor's appointments and by car to my home for visits in Dunmore. When I'm in the van, even though I am securely strapped, I will actually hit my head on the top of the roof of the van, and I fear that I will tip over. When I am going home, I also am afraid that another car traveling in the other direction of the same road, but going in the opposite direction of my car, will swerve to miss a pothole, causing a crash into my car and hit another car. Thank you.
Gentlemen, if I can have some direction as to what needs to happen at this point so this can get done for our residents and the city road and the residents of Scranton?
So I actually asked about this a couple months ago because I've gotten some other complaints about the condition of that road. And what I was told needs to happen is there needs to be some flood control work done above the hill.
Correct.
Because if they just pave the street, the water's going to flow down and it's going to be in the same condition in a year or so.
Right.
So they need to do the flood control and the water runoff work first, and then we could go in and pave the road. Mm-hmm. But I will follow up with where we're at on the runoff and that engineering part of it this week. And if you leave your number with Kathy, I'll reach out.
I will. Well, when might I expect a call in return?
I'm going to reach out, first thing in the morning. So as soon as I get a response, I will follow up with you on that.
Okay, I'd appreciate it because,
and I'll call you one way or another before the end of the week and let you know.
All right.
But that is the situation is, the water runoff
yes,
needs to be
I
better
do
controlled before we put the money into paving it.
I completely understand that, yes. When does the funding get allocated for things like that? I understand probably have to go out for bids and whatnot?
Well, road paving would go out for bid, but I believe the runoff control would just be found somewhere within the budget.
Okay.
So it would still have to be put out for bid, but hopefully that work could get done before we go out to bid for road paving next year.
Okay. Is there a timetable as to when the bids would go out?
Not that I'm aware of, but that's what I'm gonna ask and see if anything has been put together in terms of the runoff, so then we could get the process moving there.
All right, if we can push this, because as you can see,
Yes.
it's hurting many people.
Absolutely.
Many people, yes.
And in the meantime, we could also ask DPW to monitor the road more carefully, and again, obviously, until the water runoff issue is addressed.
I've spoken with Dennis Gallagher personally.
Yeah, so
Did they patch it in the last few weeks?
They patched
They were
it.
supposed to, but
They patched it right before the marathon,
yes.
yes. Other than that, I think they patched it several months ago. But the patching does no good,
Yeah.
does absolutely no good for the residents.
And that's
People
really just a
traveling there.
short-term fix until we...
Very short term.
Yes.
Until we get into the cold season again, of course.
Yes.
Is there anything else that I can do to help see this through?
Just leave the petition with Kathy and then also your contact information, and I'll definitely get back to you before the end of the week.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Okay.
General. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Teresa Roberts.
Good evening. I'm Teresa Roberts, City Council. I own 621, 623 Harrison Avenue in Scranton, PA, and I'm here tonight to discuss about registration for a business. My house was hit, and I'm also a taxpayer. My house was hit with an F1 tornado on April 12th up in the hill section. It looked like a war zone up there. My house is in shambles right now, still. I have a general contractor. I went through my insurance company. I have money and a claim open. I've been going through health issues, and I tried to come down here earlier, but with the chaos with the mayor situation, I stayed away for a while. So now I'm here to ask you is that because I'm not registered for 2017, 18, and 19, for registering my rental property, which I resign in. If you look on the guidelines for the website, it says my accountant said that if you resign in a home, it's not considered a property. Okay? So therefore, my general contractor called me and said, we cannot start this project, we cannot get a permit because you're basically holding it hostage because I'm not filling out these papers that I'm supposed to be filling out, which my house is not a business. Okay, if I moved out of the house and I had 2 units, then that place becomes a property business, but it's not a business. I just want to get my permit from my general contractor to come down, pull it, and get my work done. It's becoming my property needs a roof on the garage, and it needs a roof on the top. By waiting all the time, there's going to be bad weather coming. I could get leakage. My insurance company is not going to pay for leakage when they already gave me money sitting there and my claim is open. Now, this should have been taken care of a long time ago. I came down to the inspection place, the permit place, and they told me, here's the papers, fill them out. You know what I mean? And all they want to know is information about if I'm paying my taxes, who's my insurance company, you know what I mean? All this stuff, and it's ridiculous. Okay, I'm asking the city council to please let me get my house taken care of. It's in pieces. I want to put it back. I'm a taxpayer. I've been in Scranton for 25 years, owning my own home. Okay, there are plenty of places up there, you know what I mean? I just feel that, you know, they pick on the little person that's trying to keep their house, you know, and the taxes in Scranton are terrible, and they keep going up and up and up with the property. So there's always something that you have to do to get something to get done, and it's not right. So I would like help with this. I'm going for surgery November 14th for my foot in Philly. I cannot be worrying about, you know what I mean, to get work done on my house. I want to get it done and straightened out before I go for surgery again.
We could send, Kathy, if we could tomorrow get in touch with Tom Oleski to ask about this situation. Now, when they gave you the paperwork, did you fill it out to say that you are exempt? That was the point of when we passed rental registration, was owner-occupied properties would be exempt. I do know for exemptions, you still have to fill it out and write that you're exempt. Did you turn those in yet?
No, I have them right here, but I mean, again, it's telling me I have to fill out for 2017, 18, and 19.
I would just put your information right at the bottom, owner-occupied exempt, so at least there's something on file in that office. And we'll send a correspondence to Mr. Oleski regarding your permit, 'cause obviously nobody should have to wait, you know, for a permit in this
Now,
situation.
from what I understand, it's taking like 3 weeks for permits to come through for all the people that are up hit in the hill section, and that's ridiculous. And I did hear some hearsay that the former mayor was negotiating permits, who was getting them, who was not. You know, general contractors, they have a schedule, you know what I mean? And I'm holding up my general contractor. And I just want a permit so I can get my property back in order. I take pride in my own house.
We will get in touch with that department for you. I do know there was a large backlog when Mayor Evans took over. As of last week, I think when I talked to him, that backlog was mostly taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
So other than the confusion regarding the status of whether it's a rental property or owner occupied, there shouldn't be any reason why it would be held up any longer after confirming that you live in the property.
Right.
So we will get in touch with that department for you.
Okay.
And if a few days go by and you don't hear anything, just give our office a call and we'll follow up for you.
And give what office? Which-
Council's office.
The council
Yep.
office. Okay, absolutely.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Maurice Schumacher?
Marie Schumacher. I guess I'll start off on 81 South on East Mountain. What have you
As of the
learned?
beginning of last week, we didn't get anything back. I did forget to reach out to Lori today because she's out. She had surgery to see if she had gotten anything as of today, but I will first thing tomorrow.
Okay. Okay, now, lately, there have been a lot, 4 projects advertised for people to come and clean out streams due to debris in the streams from August 2018 storm. Now, why, I have several questions. Number one, how do they get priority over getting that? The last time it rained, I went over by Lenny Cerebro's house and drove down. You can't even tell where that pipe came. It's all filled in with sediment. They get ignored, and how does this happen?
I'll be able to explain that.
Okay.
Yes, because I do
Thank
have an
you.
answer for you on that one.
Okay, and why isn't our DPW doing that? And when are we going to see something on the stormwater program? We haven't even heard anything. We waited, 2 years for that Arcadis study, and then there was another one. Where is it? I mean, this is crazy. Okay. Mr. Donahue, also, when are OECD projects allowed to be submitted?
For the action plan, that deadline has passed for the
deadline's passed?
for them to be submitted. Normally, we approve those in October, but we're just getting in the money this year for what, like right now, for what we approved last year. So we're gonna push that then into us approving the action plan into the spring, so then we don't approve it, and then, and then next year, we're gonna extend the deadline into October.
Okay.
And just change the timeline, because that's when the money seems to be coming in, is
Yeah,
in
well,
October for the
Well, the
previous
federal
year.
government has a different fiscal year, so
Yes.
that makes sense. When are we going to see a stormwater program for the city? And when is something going to be done? When is the last time anybody checked? I mean, they've been doing the work themselves over there in Kaiser Valley. I mean, what do you have to do? Gotta have a GoFundMe page? I mean, I can't believe those people have the patience they have, and I don't know. It's just plain not right. And I don't think Wyoming Avenue's finished yet either, is it?
No.
Okay, on the agenda, 3D. What will be the frequency of the transmissions from this device? The bracket was very difficult to read.
I don't, what are you referring to?
Pardon?
The controller's report, 3D?
No, I'm sorry, 5D.
5B, you said?
D.
Ask your question again, I'm sorry, I was confused.
What frequency is going to be transmitted from that device that they're adding?
I don't know, we can find that out.
Yeah, because if it's 5G, which I fear it is, I don't know, do you know if the state has a statute on 5D placement?
I don't know, we'd have to look into that, I have no idea.
Okay, I would appreciate that, because there's certainly, I don't want to see what we saw in the paper today on the front page, CBD, it's natural, but is it okay? Put the cart before the horse, let's put something on the market and then find out if it's harmful. And there are a lot of countries that are giving a lot of pushback on all that high frequency stuff, and particularly with kids going to school down there. And then Geisinger's got their 65 forward right there.
I remember when this, I don't want to take
Good.
your time up, but I remember when they were going to put a cell phone tower in Manuka. At the zoning board meeting, residents were getting up, challenging the company, I believe it was the same gentleman that's involved with this project, on the health effects, and they were shot down every single time because they were told that they couldn't argue that point because you can't prove that. I'd have to go back and look at it, but you couldn't, in other words, to vote something down based on health effects, you couldn't do that because it couldn't be proven at that time for whatever reason. I'm not defending this certainly, but I just do remember that time and time again when Mr. Oster was trying to put cell phone towers on behalf of Verizon.
Okay, well, I would certainly like to know what the transmission's going to be from that. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron Ullman?
I do remember that. Yes, hello, Council. I certainly hope Ms. Dempsey's absence not because of me. Make me feel bad. Yeah, I like to see some new faces here like tonight. Since 1957, the first time I voted a split ticket. As far as I know, every election I've ever voted in, I voted a split ticket. So I think I really am a true independent because of this. As I watch this election, I watch these independents that are just from the Democratic Party saying that's just using a guise, as far as I'm concerned. A Democrat doesn't change their spots. The Republican's not going to change their spots by saying they're an independent. The independent machine in this city has such a stranglehold, they're fearful of losing. You know, they take some qualified independents to court. This wasn't necessary. The way the vote was going to be split up about there, this was uncalled for. To change the subject, today at Garrity's, one of the checkers told me that when she watches this program, I'm anti-female politically. That's ridiculous. I'm anti-female that want you to vote for them out of pity or some ridiculous reason. I'm anti-female that aren't qualified and experienced for the position. I guarantee you if Miss Cummings, Miss Fanucci, Miss Gatelli, Miss Evans were on a ticket, I'd certainly consider them. No anti-female with Ronnie. That's what my crazy neighbor said 3 or 4 years ago now. All right, now before Mr. Rogan tells me to shut up and sit down, you had all this fanfare about blight a couple weeks ago. I still have this filth infesting my neighborhood that nothing's being done about. I can't understand how he gets away with it. Yeah, I got pictures. I know there's no sense bringing them down here. I hate to get online under Scranton tomorrow or something and show this blight in my neighborhood. Nothing being done about it. On Pond and Market, there's a car been sitting in this field for 2 years. Nobody seems to care from the Licensing Bureau. And it doesn't look good. The field never cut. You know, council, you just don't seem to care about our neighborhoods. If it's not downtown, it's not important to you. I mentioned I went to NAIOG, there's no benches, but look what, you can't wait to build 2 parks downtown with our tax money that are completely unnecessary. The only reason we got that one lot on Penn Avenue to save the past owner from losing all his money on it. That was a shame. Well, people, all I can say, if you want more of this, just don't vote. I'd like to know who owns the parking lot next to the Tourist Club. Is it city or county?
I think it's actually privately owned, but I would have to double check.
I just wonder. It seems like it's being taken over by the restaurant with no parking signs and a dumpster on it.
They own it. They own it, Mr. Ellman.
Yeah.
The restaurant owns it.
Well, if that's not theirs.
It is. They bought it.
I
They
know
bought the
we went
property.
through this once before, but I asked about 3 or 4 weeks ago, when I was at the Tourist Club for cocktails, they told me that it belongs to the county. That's why everybody can use it.
No, that's false. The restaurant owns it.
Thank you, Mr. Ellman. Your time is up.
How was it deeded?
I believe it was purchased through the Pittsburgh plan because a few years ago, council had a vote to approve it, if I am not mistaken.
Well, I think, when was this done?
Mr. Ellman, your time is up.
Sir?
It was a few years ago. I don't remember the exact date. I mean, we could go back and look, but I know that we passed
Under the previous
legislation.
administration? The previous mayor?
Yes, yes.
Well, we could take that for what it's worth, can't we? Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Bolus?
Evening, Council. Bob Wallace, Scranton. First off, I refiled a complaint and an injunction against NAIOG. I'm asking you guys again to disband the authority, put Scranton first, and bring it back under the control of the city. There'll be a hearing on the injunction on December 2nd. I'm done playing games, and we're all sitting here letting Guy Singer bully us for $1 a day to park a car. I paid $3 in Scranton today just to go to the courthouse for 2 crummy hours. And here we're giving them $1 a day, $100,000 a year over the next 10 years is $1 million. It's ludicrous to even consider it. If you can't get the price of a Big Mac, $5 a day, you gotta be a bunch of complete idiots to allow this to happen. And I'm asking you again, put Scranton first, the people first, disband the authority, put the money here where NAIOG is done, but the money is done first. And then we take it to the other areas we need it in the city defray the expenses that we're getting killed with the school board. I went over there tonight to speak, and I had a whole breakdown for them. Right? You can't speak there. You got to write them a note. Never saw a dumber thing in my life. If you want to explain something, you have to have dialogue. But we totally disagree with the mercantile tax and the payroll tax. Both should be eliminated. And we feel that a 2% fee should be put on all the students and all the universities and colleges here, whatever their tuition cost, to defray our expenses. Eliminate the garbage fee and let those that are getting a free ride here, tax exempt and all, start paying the money. It's about business, it's about dollars and cents, and we're not doing any of that. You know, you got to understand, I talked to the mayor about NAOG. He said, nothing's been done there in the last 30 years. Well, I tried to explain to him, the past is gone, the future is now, and the present, present is now, and the future belongs to no one. We could only make a contingent plan. Remember, we paid 25 cents for gas back then. So you have to use common sense where we're going. We used to have an elephant and a donkey and a tiger and other things at NAOG. So let the money come in, go to revitalize what we really need in this community, not people who have no idea what the hell to do with the money and make a stupid agreement like this. It's supply and demand. We have the supply, they have the demand. They're throwing millions of dollars all over the place. We should get a little piece of the pie. And it's up to you guys to see that it happens. You know, $5 a day is nothing, but with a dollar increment over the next 10 years, each year, makes a lot more sense. You know, so eliminate your mercantile tax. That the fun part of it is, and Mr. Dunn, we're running all our campaign signs all over the place. They're tearing them down. Everything else, we're in for a hell of a surprise. Keep tearing them down, and you're going to get caught. Okay? I don't play games. I'm a serious player here. And if that little sign bothers you, try turning down one of my trailers. Ask Vice President Pence about my trailer tonight that was down in Duryea and what it means to do what we're doing. You know, everybody's questioning whether I could be a candidate in this city or not. Related to the 91 charges, they're being expunged because at age 70, they could be expunged and they go away. So the theories that everybody's put out there that I can't take the seat or serve are false. I can run and I can't take the seat, and it's before the Commonwealth. Because everybody talked about something in 91 with Supreme Court. It's over with. It ended at age 70. And I'm past age 70, unfortunately. And that's going to happen. And I'm a serious contender because this is my city, and my belief is what we need to do is work with everybody here. But you need somebody that could take the bull by the horns and get the job done. Mr. Gunn, we're before Commonwealth Court, but you bring up how do people get arrested in the city, and let's do the ethics. What about Jimmy Mulligan paying back the money that he took for his health care that he wasn't entitled to? That's a fraud. That's a theft. Either we file to get it back from him, or you file with the AG's office to charge him with insurance fraud. That's getting serious business here. There's hundreds of thousands of dollars there. Let's get that back. We let Hinton off the hook, and we just let all this nonsense keep going on and going on. I want to see a city grow, but I want accountability. And you brought it all up, and I look to you as the guy that led the Ethics Commission, getting something done. But let's go after Mulligan now, since he was worried about me running. Let's worry about him paying the money back. The kettle, calling the kettle black. Let's get the job done and see where it goes.
Thank you, Mr.
We have a
Walls.
serious election going on, and the future of this city is at stake, and everybody's got to learn to work together, but have one common goal: disband that authority and put the money where it could do the most good and help bring Scranton out of debt and give our senior citizens and everybody a fair chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council?
Good evening, Council. Dave Dobson, resident, Scranton. A few people were here a few weeks ago and they were complaining about a policeman being here. I don't see him here anymore. Well, I'm not complaining that he's here. I'm complaining that he's not here. He could dispel or diffuse a problem someday. And the time for that is to be ready when it happens, not after it happens and somebody gets hurt or somebody goes wacko. In the paper this week we had the gas cards. And it's fair to say it was a mess. Nothing can be done about what was done in the past. I don't want to punish people or put them on the whipping post or whatever, but it's time to get it right and reorganize that whole situation and tighten up on it. And recently we went with kiosks for parking. And down in Wilkes-Barre, I was down there a week or two ago, and they have lines painted for spaces. And what I noticed with night parking is people just park any old way. They will park a big pickup truck in front of 2 meters, so they have plenty of room to pull that big old pickup truck out, in and out, when they get out of wherever they're at. And we don't have any lines here, so I'm wondering if it won't cause a problem not to have those lines. I mean, certain people are entitled to whatever space they're paying for, but they're surely not entitled to whatever space they want. And because they can't turn their car a second time or watch out where they're going, or they're worried that somebody else is going to be parked against their bumper, well, the lines would prevent that. And I mentioned on the sewer meeting, the original sewer meeting, and one of the things that happened to me at Marywood was I mentioned nobody knew where the meeting was, no matter whether there were, whoever was connected with the building, and I didn't know where the building was, so I'm asking around, and I walked into what looked like a student lounge, and I asked the person. He looked around middle-aged, so he was probably a prop or somebody, a proctor for the room. And he said, "Oh, it's right up through that door." So that's what I meant when they treated me like some drunk or something, wandering around their campus. I went up through that door, up the steps, and I was outside. You know, like, if that's your attitude, Marywood, please don't ever hold a meeting on Scranton issues again on your campus. Hold them right here. That was the proper place for it. We have plenty of seats. We have an upstairs. We could put a speaker out in the governor's room, whatever. But that sewer authority, that is again in the paper, and I see somebody's getting paid $140 an hour for the mess they created. You know, it's just really sad. And I mentioned about dumpsters, and I really didn't complete my sentence. I think the bell rang. But anyway, if you have a dumpster from somebody on the block for construction, you don't discourage a neighbor or fight with your neighbor because the dumpster is left there too long. You look the number up in the phone book for the Scranton Police, not 911, just the general number. I called up and told them the name and address of the dumpster company, and gave them a phone number, and it was gone the next day. But it had been sitting there for 7 weeks, and stuff was falling out of it, and people were rooting around in it. Great to salvage, but did they have to leave a couple hundred nails that they knocked down on the street right where my car has to drive over? Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Is there anyone else with
5A motions.
No, nothing at this time.
Yes, just to answer Joan's question about the audit, when I asked about that last week, I was told hopefully by November 1st. So I did mention to Mayor Evans that maybe we should consider putting our bids together for next year's audit now to try to speed up that process, so we already have the bids in and we'll just have to approve it. On Mrs. Schumacher's, Marie's comment on the bids for cleaning out the creek beds, that's actually done by FEMA and PEMA in relation to the flooding from last year. So they could control that to clear out any creek beds that were disturbed because of that flooding. So they do it in conjunction with the city, because the city has to go through and justify all the funding, but it's really FEMA and PEMA that are putting out those bids. Councilwoman Dempsey and myself attended the Platte neighborhood meeting about a week and a half ago. They passed along a few complaints. Those include several large potholes on Race Street between Shawnee and Comegys, and on Brown Avenue, and also on Amelia Avenue between Parker Street and Bates Street. It was also reported that there was a missing stop sign on Brighton Ave, where Brighton wraps around to meet Finn Street. And they also passed along complaints about tractor trailers being parked mostly on Shawnee Avenue and other surrounding streets at night with the motors still running. They are unsure if the drivers are using it as a spot to sleep at night, but the noise from the tractor trailers is disturbing the peace of the neighborhood. I will be forwarding along those complaints to the proper departments. A couple other complaints I received in the past week I will also be forwarding along include one from residents of Jackson Heights of a dangerous situation in front of St. Lucy's Church, where cars are speeding around the bend where Scranton Street and St. Francis Cabrini Avenue meet. Residents feel it's a dangerous situation as they're trying to pull out of the parking lot for Jackson Heights while cars are speeding around that bend. I've also gotten a few complaints about storm drains collapsing into the road. One is on the corner of Pierce Street and North Main Avenue, and the other is on Girard Drive, where the sidewalk is actually collapsing in. So I'll be forwarding those along to the proper departments this week as well. Now on to the issue with sewer authority easements. I actually decided to run for council in the first place, mainly because of my dissatisfaction with the way the sewer sale was handled. It was my opinion then, and that opinion still holds true today, that the sewer system should not have been sold until this easement issue was settled, and also until the city developed a plan on how to handle stormwater. And here we, excuse me, here we are 3 years later, and these easements still have not been secured, and we don't have a plan for stormwater. It is absolutely, completely unacceptable. It is clear as can be that the major beneficiaries of this whole deal were the lawyers who were paid millions of dollars to handle the deal. I also agreed at the time with the request by the previous council to ask the sewer authority to request the Auditor General to come in and review the sale in its entirety. Unfortunately, the sewer authority board shot that request down. Given everything that has transpired regarding the former mayor, I believe the sewer authority board should reconsider that request. I am pleased that Attorney Shrive has agreed to come in next week to answer council's questions regarding this easement issue, because I also have a few questions, including how many easements have been secured to date, how many still need to be secured, also what outside attorneys have been hired to secure these easements, and what have they been paid since the close of the sale. These are all important questions, and I'm hopeful that Attorney Shrive can answer those questions for us next week. Finally, on the continuing fiasco involving the gas cards. I've been saying for the last 4 years that the city of Scranton needs to fundamentally change the way it does business. The revelations over the last few months are definitive proof that the city's financial controls and internal oversight need to be improved immediately. For too long, city employees were able to run amok and do what they pleased because they were well aware of the lack of internal controls and oversight in place to actually hold them accountable. It's important to mention that there may have been justifiable reasons for the amount cited in yesterday's paper. But if there was proper justification, it needs to be properly explained and documented. And that brings us back to the question of why the city does not have a fleet manager. According to the city vehicle list Councilman Gahn and myself were provided over a year ago, the city has 277 vehicles in its fleet, which includes everything from fire trucks to police cruisers and motorcycles to garbage trucks, backhoes, and trailers. Without a fleet manager, who is responsible for overseeing all those vehicles? This council requested an audit of the gas card program because we wanted to rely on an expert to come in to determine what, if any, controls are currently in place and what we need to do to strengthen those controls. That audit had to be put out to bid for 30 days, and those bids are set to be opened on November 1st. Since that is not enough time to post on council's agenda for our meeting on November 4th, we should consider holding a special meeting either late in the week of the 4th or the following week of the 11th to pass the legislation with the emergency certificate so the company with the lowest bid can be hired sooner than later so they can get to work immediately. Otherwise, if we were going to follow our normal procedure, we wouldn't be passing legislation for this audit to actually begin until November 25th after we were to introduce it on November 18th. I also believe the administration should also reach out to the Auditor General's office to see if they could be of any assistance in looking into and reviewing internal controls of the gas card program. In the meantime, the administration should provide council with an update on any and all new procedures and/or policies put in place since this issue arose, as well as any justification and/or explanation of the irregular charges already brought to light by the Scranton Times. And that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you. Attorney Minor, I know you said you had something to read quickly.
Yes, for Attorney Dempsey. She asked that some of her remarks be made part of the record, so I'll give them to Kathy so that they can be recorded.
Perfect. Mr. Gahn, any motions or comments?
Yes, quite a few, thank you. First, I'd like to make a motion that City Council send correspondence to the Scranton Sewer Authority Board and its chairman, asking them to reconvene for a special meeting as soon as possible to consider voting to invite the Auditor General of Pennsylvania to audit the authority and the sale of the authority to Pennsylvania American Water.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question. 2 years ago, I had made a motion in these chambers almost simultaneously with all council members in Dunmore to invite the Auditor General of Pennsylvania to come in and review the sale of the Scranton Sewer Authority. In one of the most mind-boggling decisions that I have ever seen in my entire life, the Sewer Authority Board voted against inviting the Auditor General in to review the sale. If you remember, at that time, there was many questions and there was controversy and really a black cloud hanging over the sale. Fast forward 3 years later, and I believe we're in the same position. I have not talked to one person in this city or in Dunmore or in Lackawanna County for that matter that has any faith whatsoever that this deal was done above board, as the previous mayor had said. The Auditor General is on record multiple times saying that he would be more than happy to come in and review the sale of the authority to Pennsylvania American Water. Why would anyone in their right mind not want Eugene D. Pasquale, the Auditor General, to come in and review the sale of the Scranton Sewer Authority? In the state of Pennsylvania, it was, I believe it still is, the largest sale of a public authority of its kind. I think the lack of oversight and the board's decision not to allow the Auditor General to come in was a major mistake. Fast forward a few years and we find out that there was an awful lot of corruption going on in this building and elsewhere from the previous mayor. And I think that in light of that, in light of the issues that we currently find ourselves in light of the lawsuits, I think it's time to take another look at this and put it to bed once and for all. Now, Should the Auditor General come in and review the sale of the Scranton Sewer Authority and find that everything was done above board? Great. I do not see a drawback, just like I didn't see one 3 years ago, to having him come in with his team and take another look. And I don't think that anybody should be afraid to allow a thorough review by the Auditor General if everything was done above board. I want to read from an article, January 9th, 2018, where the Auditor General said if he is granted additional power to audit authorities, which he would have had to been granted by the state legislature, the first authority on his list in the state of Pennsylvania would have been the Scranton Sewer Authority. He said, when the Philadelphia Parking Authority and the Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority responded to public pressure and invited my team in, we uncovered wide-ranging problems that led to dramatic reforms at both entities. I also would like to cite Senator Blake, who at that time in an article on January 12, 2018, on Eyewitness News NBC, or WBRE rather, he said that audits don't just uncover wrongdoing, but they can also point out good conduct as well. I'd rather have the authority and rather be reaffirmed and let the taxpayers be reassured that what has been going on in their interest. I think that's an important point to make. The governor of the state of Pennsylvania said, I have to admit, I haven't studied the bill to allow the Auditor General to audit municipal authorities, but in general, the idea of more accountability and more transparency strikes me as a really good idea. I would agree with the governor. I don't think we have any elected official in the city of Scranton or in Dunmore that does not want an audit of the sale of the Scranton Sewer Authority to Pennsylvania American Water. So if this city is truly going to turn the corner and embrace transparency and do things the right way, then let this be the first step. So I would hope that my colleagues would agree. Let's ask the Sewer Authority Board to reconvene for a special meeting. Let's ask them to do the right thing for the taxpayers and the ratepayers of this city and Dunmore. Let's ask them to invite the Auditor General in, who's more than willing to come in with his team and audit the sale, and let's finally move in the right direction.
Anyone else on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
And I do plan on calling Mayor Burke of Dunmore tomorrow morning and asking that a similar motion be made, and I will call the President of Council of Dunmore and ask him that a similar motion be made at their next regularly scheduled meeting. Mr. Shrive, who is the attorney for the Scranton Sewer Authority, responded as Councilman Donahue said that he will be coming before council in an executive session regarding the easements on Monday, October 28th at 5:15 p.m. In preparation for that meeting, I'd like to make a motion that council send the following letter with requests for information from Mr. Shrive. Number one, how many easements have actually been secured to date? Please list the addresses of these properties. Number two, how many easements still need to be secured? Please list the addresses of these properties. Number three, were any condemnations or condemnation declarations filed on specific properties? And if so, please list the number of these proceedings and the addresses of the affected property owners. Number four, what attorneys were hired and tasked with securing these easements? Whose responsibility was this? Number five, what attorneys have been paid to secure easements to date, and what is the amount paid out for this work? Number six, please provide an explanation as to why attorneys were paid in full before all easements were officially secured. Number seven, why did the sale between Pennsylvania American Water and the Scranton Sewer Authority close, and legislation was sent down before City Council in December 2016 requesting the dissolution of the authority before the easements were secured? If it was clear in the summer of 2016 that there was an issue with easements, then why would you want to dissolve the authority and then turn around and it still exists 3 years later? Number eight, when were city officials made aware of the escrow reversion deadline? Please list all city officials who were made aware of this date and when they were made aware. Number nine, when were you as executive director and solicitor of the sewer authority made aware of the escrow reversion deadline? And finally, does the escrow reversion deadline exist in writing anywhere? If so, please provide this documentation.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
On the gas card issue, which I think needs to be addressed at this point, as the layers of the rotten onion that was the former Courtright administration are continually peeled back, we uncovered gross incompetence and mismanagement. The most recent revelation made by the Scranton Times dealing with the gas card debacle is another embarrassing black eye on a city that is currently punch drunk. On October 9th, the city controller sent a letter to the DPW asking for an explanation regarding several discrepancies found within that department in regards to the use of gas cards. The Scranton Times investigative report this past Sunday highlighted many more red flags with the use of these cards. This report begs the question, why didn't anyone in the controller's office, in the business administrator's office, in the DPW, or really anyone tasked with reviewing these charges and approving payment, why didn't anybody question this? How did this get through so many layers of government without anybody turning an eye and saying, wait, this does not look right? All of these charges, to my knowledge, were approved and were paid. Someone in this administration or in the former administration must be held accountable and take responsibility for this epic lack of oversight and fix it immediately. I'd like to start by making a motion to ask City Council to send the following letter to the business administrator, the DPW director, Mr. Gallagher, and the city controller with the following question, and also the mayor with the following questions. For the business administrator's office, why do so many employees need gas cards? There are 80-plus employees with gas cards. Why were all these employees given cards when, to our knowledge, there is no written policy on the use? Whose idea was this, and why was there no oversight? This is just inviting abuse and shows an awful lack of judgment, in my opinion. I would also like to ask the DPW director to explain each discrepancy listed in the controller's letter of October 9, 2019 in writing. To the DPW director and the business administrator, please justify to City Council why gas cards and PIN numbers were transferable between individuals and departments. Please list the name and title of all employees who used DPW employee Mr. McMullen's PIN number to get gas. If gas cards were lost or stolen, which is the excuse that was given in the newspaper as to why PIN numbers were given out like candy, why weren't they immediately canceled to prevent potential fraud and abuse? Were there any cards in the last 5 years that were ever reported lost or stolen to any members of the administration, and were they ever canceled? According to the Scranton Times article this past Sunday, one DPW employee used his gas card 11 times on January 22, 2018, and January 22, 2019, according to the Scranton Times, to buy nearly 260 gallons of diesel fuel on both occasions. There was also a non-fuel purchase of $25.48 on January 22, 2018. Please provide an explanation in writing for this large purchase of diesel fuel. I should have prefaced my comments by saying that I am not accusing anyone in this city of any wrongdoing or any criminal activity. I'm simply asking these questions because something needs to be put in writing to explain this. And if they can't explain it, and it's just the fact that there was a total lack of oversight and incompetence, then they should put that in writing as well. My next question, why are DPW employees getting gas using Mr. McMullen's PIN number, but with house gas cards meant for the police department? According to the newspaper and what council has been told, house gas cards are not issued to individual city workers. To the business administrator's office, the DPW, the controller, has any city employee, to your knowledge, used a city-issued gas card for personal use? I'd like to remind everyone that 1 cent of fuel spent on personal use is theft of services. Also, I'd like someone in the administration to please explain the rationale behind the selection of the gas stations where house cards are stored for the police department. One of the things that I was concerned about, and I mentioned this 2 weeks ago, is that when the city transferred from Valero to Sunoco, they were given a no-bid contract. Now, the reason, according to the administration, is because Valero went out of business. Sunoco was given a sole source contract because apparently there was no other stations that could do that work. I don't know if the truth behind that, but that's the reason that was given. To Mayor Evans, what has been done or will be done to clearly set forth precise and exact parameters for the purchase of gas on a city card with clear instructions that no personal use should be allowed. The policy should set forth who is responsible for oversight of these charges and how the process will work. And to the Controller's Office, why wasn't your office reviewing these gas charges? How could there be approval with this many discrepancies and issues?
Second.
On the question?
On the question, I would like these questions to be answered by the end of business, 4 p.m. Friday, October 25th. If these questions are not answered to council's satisfaction, I would like to put in the letter that council reserves the right to utilize Section 312 of the Scranton Home Rule Charter entitled Powers of Council, which states that council may make investigations into the affairs of the city and conduct of any department, office, or agency in aid of its legislative powers and functions, and may issue subpoenas for these purposes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very serious matter, which is why this council has asked for a 3-year certified audit of gas card usage and really a look at the program as a whole, keeping in mind from the auditor best practices and accounting standards. Moving forward, as I mentioned in my question to the mayor and the administration, I think that they should immediately, and I'm hoping and I'm assuming that they're revisiting this issue and the fact that we're issuing 80-plus gas cards to employees. I do think that that in and of itself, with no policy, invites abuse. Again, I want to make sure I state that I'm not accusing anyone of any wrongdoing, but I do think in order for us to move forward, we need these questions and these explanations and answers in writing. When I go around and I talk to people in the public, as I mentioned in the beginning of my statement on this, the city has a black eye now. We are literally, I don't know if we have any credibility left. So if we don't get these answers in writing and someone from this administration does not step up and members of the previous administration and explain this and come clean on why there was no oversight and what exactly happened, then I think we have a major issue. So I do think that in the interim, we need a strong policy and procedures governing this program. We need to turn the corner here and make sure we hold people accountable.
Anyone else on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
I'd like to make a motion to place the overtime figures that I received from City Controller Roseanne Novembrino in third order for the next council meeting.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question. Have a minute to pull this out. I had requested 2 weeks ago for the overtime numbers from the Controller's Office, and I appreciate them getting back to me so quickly. I asked for a complete accounting of where we stand in overtime. I believe I did the same last year. So just to give everybody an update, right now we budgeted $650,000 for the police department. We are over budget by $16,301.06. We're actually over budget in each category that's listed for overtime, so we're about $40,000 over as of the pay period ending September 27, 2019. As for the fire department overtime, which I requested in a separate correspondence because it was included in the original one, the budget allocated $350,000, and we have a balance of $94,670.68 as of September 27, 2019. What I would like to ask the police department and fire department is if they can provide counsel how much of that funding that's been expended so far is reimbursable to the city.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
Thank you. I would also like to make a motion to place the Controller's letter of October 9th directed to the Department of Public Works regarding gas card discrepancies into third order on our agenda for next week.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
I'd also like to make a motion at this time to put the letter we received and we were copied on, effectively, the administration effectively terminating or asking for a termination of the Northeast Revenue Services contract in third order for next week.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question. We received a letter October 16, 2019. We were copied on this letter. This letter was directed to Sean Chamonix of Northeast Revenue Services. They are the collector of delinquent real estate and refuse taxes in the city. I won't go through the whole letter, but the gist of it is that the city would like to terminate the contract effective December 31st, 2019. There's other information in here, and I think this is, I would like to put it in third order next week.
On the question, I did speak with the mayor regarding this, and I know council is unanimous that we want to move another direction with regards to this collection, but this is not a done deal yet. It is still in negotiations. For a football analogy, we're on the 5-yard line going in to have this finalized. I don't think putting that letter out on the record at this point is appropriate because it's not a final determination. If you would amend the motion to be, as soon as it's finalized, obviously at that point I think it would be appropriate, but it is not finalized yet. So I would caution with putting it out there right yet.
The only thing I would say, and I don't want to get into a back and forth on this, but there's nothing in here that says it's confidential, and council did receive it, so I don't want to amend my motion, but I'd just like an up or down vote.
I know we discussed this prior, and it was a confidential memo. Why it wasn't listed that way was a mistake on somebody's part, but like we discussed earlier, I did discuss it with the mayor because I wanted to bring up that letter, and he asked at this time that we don't. Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. The motion fails.
On the NRS termination or potential termination, I would like, and I know the administration is in constant discussions on what the next steps are from here. If the city does end up terminating NRS, which I believe that they should based on their involvement in 2 federal corruption investigations, I would like to request a timeline on where we go from here. As Mr. Rogan mentioned earlier in the meeting, council did request, and I have been pushing this for the last few years, for us to put out in the newspaper an advertisement when we put people on the zoning board. So we did that. It is in the newspaper, and if anybody is interested in being an alternate member of the zoning board, please submit your resumes and your cover letters to council. Also, on September 25th, I had made a motion to request that the administration provide a cover sheet, which I went over in detail on September 25th, to accompany the legislation that they send down. The administration still has not complied with that motion. I would just like to send more correspondence, Ms. Carrera, if you could, and just ask them when they intend on complying with council's request, and if they don't, if they could please delineate that in correspondence. Also, I sent a letter to Mayor Evans and the administration on September 13th, 2019 regarding completion and progress of recommendations made by the Pennsylvania Economy League in our recovery plan. I had asked when the Pennsylvania Economy League and Mr. Bolzoni came before us in a caucus at the end of the summer for a detailed explanation on each initiative and each recommendation that was in the recovery plan, where the city was in completing that. I received a response from Pell that was it did not suffice with me, very vague. It was either completed or underway. I wanted a much more detailed response so that this council can understand, for example, the Human Resources Department was supposed to put together a more comprehensive program and update their database. It's not clear if that's been done yet. So rather than it's underway, since we are exiting Act 47 next summer, I would appreciate, and Ms. Carrera, if you could send again another reminder that I would like a more detailed response on that. I'd also like, Ms. Carrera, if you could send a letter on my behalf to Mayor Evans and the administration asking for an update on the self-audit of Chief DeSarno's gas charges. I would like to know, is there a time frame for the self-audit? I know this was announced a few weeks ago. I do think we need more specifics in writing on what this looks like, what documentation will be provided, and where we are in that process, because of course I think that is important. We also received an email from Mr. Bolzoni along with proposals of the possible relocation of the offices of OECD out of City Hall into other locations. There's a number of different reasons that are cited in here. He does ask in his correspondence what the council thinks and what the administration might think. Just at first glance, I would say that I would prefer to keep OECD in this building and not have to pay rent to another building. I do know that years ago, OECD was in the Scranton Life building, and eventually they had to move back into City Hall. So I'm sure we'll continue to discuss this, but just at first glance, I do have some concerns. I would like council, and we can talk about this hopefully in our caucus next week, to start thinking about scheduling a meeting with Mayor Evans, the business administrator, and the Pennsylvania Economy League in regards to the 2020 budget. I'm hoping that this year, council gives ourselves enough time to have a meaningful conversation and a meaningful back and forth regarding the budget. In years past, in my opinion, we have hamstringed ourselves to 30 or 45 minutes, and we're sitting here, and in my judgment, there's never enough time, and it's not a fruitful conversation. So I would just ask my colleagues if we could consider that next week. I don't think it should be limited to just a half hour or 45 minutes. I think we should give ourselves more time, and if we have to schedule a meeting separate from the council meeting, I think that actually might even be better. Ms. Carrera, I would also like to request from the administration a list of any and all contracts the city is currently entered into, the term or duration of those contracts, and a brief explanation as to what the contract is for and what it entails. That would be very helpful. Also, just on citizens' requests, 1452 West Locust Street. If you remember, months and months ago, I held up the picture of the gentleman that lives next door to the large hole standing in it. The hole is marked to be fixed and to be filled, but the neighbors had reached out to me once again and wanted to know what the timeline is on that. They also wanted to know whether the sidewalks, which have been damaged because of the hole, will be fixed as well. That's all I have this week. Thank you.
Nothing at this time.
5B, for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract with Fox Rothschild LLP to provide legal services to the city of Scranton in the refuge class action litigation.
This time we'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5C, for introduction, a resolution authorizing the appointment of Glynis Jones, 801 Townhouse Boulevard, Scranton, PA, 18508, to serve as a member of the Scranton Public Library Authority, effective October 1st, 2019. Ms. Jones is being appointed to a 5-year term, which will expire October 1st, 2024.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5D, for introduction, a resolution authorizing the Director of the Department of Public Works of the City of Scranton to sign and submit the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, PennDOT, application for a traffic signal approval for a traffic signal permit number 40040 7th Avenue and Providence Road, State Route 3029 and Olive Street and Munchak Way, and Olive Plaza for modifications to accommodate new Singular Wireless doing business as ATT Mobile small cell sites project, including mast arm replacement.
This time we'll entertain a motion that item 5D be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question. Mrs. Schumacher, if you can email me or write down your questions, because I wrote them down, but I can't now read my own handwriting. When I went to look back, I was trying to scribble really quick. And I would also like to pose a question of my own on this. Back in December of 2017, I was not at the meeting for final passage of this, but the city entered into a contract or an agreement with New Singular Wireless for lease payments when they put up these cell towers. I would like to know, Ms. Carrera, if you can ask the administration how much the city has earned from these lease agreements I would appreciate that. That's all I have.
Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
6A, reading by title, file of Council 75, 2019, an ordinance establishing permit parking on the even side of the 900 block of Jefferson Avenue.
You've heard reading by title of item 6A. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
7A has been tabled.
If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Meeting adjourned.